So within the last week, 3 candidates have officially launched their presidential campaigns, from former Vice President Mike Pence, former New Jersey Governor Christie, and North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. And that brings a total to 9 GOP presidential candidates, 3 Democrat candidates, and 1 third-party candidate. That's Dr. Cornel West. And as more candidates announce their campaigns, what could that mean for the 2024 primary? Well, in a recent poll released by our network, News Nation, if President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump have a rematch in 2024, about 50% of people would consider voting for another candidate. So joining us now is Julia Manchester, who covers national politics as a reporter with our media partners at The Hill. Julia, great to see you again. Welcome back. So I want to start with what came out on Thursday. Trump's been indicted now for a second time. So how does that shape up the 2024 election?
Yeah, so we're already seeing 2024 Republican candidates responding. On one end of the spectrum, you have Trump's critics, like former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, essentially saying this is yet more evidence that Trump needs to step aside and not run for president. The Republican Party does not need this kind of baggage. However, on the other side of this, you have Governor Ron DeSantis, who is seen as Trump's chief ally in the GOP primary battle, saying, look, this is just proof that the Justice Department has been weaponized against a former Republican president, a conservative. So you're seeing these different messages play out. However, I think you are going to see more Republicans over the next few days point out the fact that, even Biden, though Biden or President Biden did not order this indictment, this was done through a grand jury under the Attorney General. It's still the Attorney General and the Justice Department under the Biden administration. So you're going to see President Trump and Biden critics really trying to highlight that.
And just this week, we had 3 candidates announce their presidential runs, including former Vice President Mike Pence. This is interesting. He was once an ally of Trump, going up now against his former boss. How could we see that play out?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting dynamic because we rarely see a former vice president or a vice president challenge his boss or former boss in this case. You're going to see Mike Pence, and it seems like he's already done this to an extent, make the January 6th attacks and his, his decision to keep his oath as vice president to certify those election results in the Senate that day, and push back against President Trump's false claims that the 2020 election was stolen or rigged. So it's an interesting lane he's staking out to differentiate himself from Trump. But at the end of the day, it seems like that's not a huge priority for GOP primary voters. And we already know that Trump has such a firm grip on these GOP primary voters.
And you had brought up Florida Governor Ron DeSantis as being one of the front runners. Now, he did receive a slate of endorsements from Oklahoma Republicans this week. Do you think DeSantis is the one to beat, or does Trump still control the party?
I think Trump is still the one to beat. However, we're still incredibly early and, far out from the Iowa caucuses and the New Hampshire primary. So, all of these candidates have quite some time to go. But look, if DeSantis can close that gap and can make that case to potential voters and caucus goers that he is the younger, more fresh face of the Republican Party and he doesn't have the same kind of baggage that Donald Trump has, maybe that works in his favor. But right now, Donald Trump is pretty firmly the front runner.
And last question, we want to talk about the Democratic Party now. We have President Joe Biden, his approval rating sitting at 40%. That was according to a poll by Reuters. It's increased over the last month. And I also want to point out a recent Fox News survey that placed Robert Kennedy Jr. at 16%. That was support among registered voters. And then a CNN poll released on May 25th shows him with 20% of support among Democratic and Democratic-leaning respondents. So are Democrats going to back President Biden as the best person to take on the GOP, or are they considering someone else?
I think for the most part, they're going to back President Biden. He is the leader of the Democratic Party. I think with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., what you see is maybe there's some frustration among some voters right now with Biden, and they're looking for an alternative. He could gain traction in a state like New Hampshire. He's a Kennedy, so he's well known in New England. We do know that there's also some tension right now between the Democratic Party establishment and the New Hampshire Democratic Party, given that the DNC voted to essentially make South Carolina the first in the nation primary state, a bit of a dig at New Hampshire. So there's tension there. But overall, this is still, I would say, Biden's nomination at this point. But it's notable that someone else is in the double digits.